Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fallen London. Today we're going to be having a look at April's exceptional story, the Totentanz. So as always, at the start of a new exceptional story, I will encourage you to go and support Failbetter, become an exceptional friend, get access to another candle, an expanded deck, and a House of Chimes, and various other things like outfits and things. It's very good. If you play a lot of Fallen London, it's very good. But either way, let's jump straight in. A curious envelope. Someone has pushed an envelope beneath the door of your lodgings. Breaking the seal unleashes the scent of pomegranates and ferment. It's a letter from Mr. Wines inviting you to a specific, dilapidated pavilion in the Forgotten Quarter. The Master wishes to discuss your assistance, an urgent matter, something it calls the Totentanz. We shall depart straight away. It is a Master of the Bazaar, an invitation from a Master. After all, this is no small thing. The quiet but powerful understanding that Tomb-colonists remain in the colonies seem to have frayed. Tomb-colonists are everywhere, patronising shops, strolling down avenues, and reminiscing loudly about how much the city has changed. London isn't extending its warmest welcome. Youths harangue shaky-kneed colonists at street corners, urchins snatch at their bandages, shopkeepers chase them away with truncheons. By the time you reach the Forgotten Quarter, you can see constables gathering, ready to restore order. A stark hush, distant howling, things scuttling in the alleys. The sweet strains of the Forgotten Quarter. Mr. Wines sits beneath the verdigrised and moss-chewed roof of the dilapidated pavilion. It is sampling an array of gem-coloured liqueurs with a veiled and bandaged figure. Another Tomb-colonist.
Ah, you've arrived,
Mr. Wines slurs.
a saviour to savour in our hour of need. We could dance a jig, though not as the dead do.
The Master hiccups.
Not the Totentanz.
Let's inquire what Mr. Wines wants. The Master discussed it only briefly in its letter.
A party for the ages, an ancient obligation,
says Mr. Wines.
We agreed to it long ago. Once in the course of a fallen city, we offer a chance to die. Truly die, as one would above. Some Tomb-colonists crave the Totentanz. It's why they've shown up in droves with their expectations.
Mr. Wines drains its glass.
It is no easy thing, but the time has come, and we find ourselves in need of some assistance. Your name came up.
Okay, well, let's ask about this Totentanz. Mr. Wines may have overestimated your grasp of the situation.
It is just what you people call it in this age. A dance performed in moonlight. The moonlight causes a vision of the surface, the world without the neath. The Totentanz makes it real, enough to kill, at least.
Mr. Wines is being exceedingly forthcoming. The Master sighs.
But the Totentanz is a very particular thing. It needs the right steps to the right music, played with the right instruments. And they are lost. All lost. It's so easy to misplace something you use once an age, you see. and without them, the Totentanz is just a sorry soiree, and a violation of an important contract.
So we can offer to assist Mr. Wines. It sounds like Mr. Wines needs help, and it never hurts to have a master in your debt. We keep this up, I'm going to have debts with every single one of the masters.
A serviceable outcome,
says Mr. Wines.
We shall make the introduction. Next to us sits a dignitary from the Tomb-colonists, whom you will find a font of knowledge. We feel very strongly that you will get along well, and so we depart for our own business.
Mr. Wines rises unsteadily, knocking over several glasses of liqueur. It is just you and the Withered Celebrant now. The master has saddled you with quite the task, says the Withered Celebrant. The Totentanz draws what would have been our deaths from lost histories, beckoning mortality forth. No salvation nor tragedy is beyond the Totentanz. It is precious and perilous in equal measure. He writes a liqueur glass overturned by Mr. Wines in its departure. It is also lost. The task Mr. Wines has set is this: retrieve the steps, the melody, and the instruments necessary to play it. I have tried and failed myself. I am simply too old. Well, let's ask the Withered Celebrant about herself. It's curious a tomb-colonist would be so involved in the affairs of a master. You can see the flash of gold-capped canines and the curve of a scar-cleaved lips through the gossamer of her veil. I've lived a long life in the Tomb-colonists, and a longer one in the Neath, he says. I've seen and done more than most, made more enemies and more promises than most too. I am tasked by the old powers of the Tomb-colonists to ensure the masters fulfill their side of the bargain. Despite my frailty, it is my duty to see the Totentanz through, and I suppose accept its gift of final death. Let's inquire about the dance steps. Where could you possibly find the lost steps to such a dangerous dance? Are they even in London? I conducted a brief investigation into the matter before my age, and London's attitude towards tomb-colonists caught up with me. I was led to the Parlour of Virtue. A woman renowned for her knowledge of dances once worked there. I hear that she still takes tea with Jenny from time to time. She is a most distinctive woman. You will know her by her great height, the iron grey of her hair, and the scar on her face. Interesting. Let's ask about the melody. It cannot be easy to find, or the Withered Celebrant would surely have got her hands on it already. We are fortunate. My contracts tell me that Galbraith and Salazar Auction House on Lady Bones Road has put a rare copy of the sheet music up for sale. It is a venerable and eccentric institution with many powerful patrons, but you must win this auction. Once I would have acquired it myself, but the journey from the Tomb-colonists has strained me. The Withered Celebrant toys with a glass of indigo liqueur left behind by Mr. Wines. There's a faint tremble in her hands. Let's investigate the instruments. What sort of instruments does one need to play such a powerful melody? The Totentanz is a once requiem for what never was, and a reveal that awakens lost possibilities. No instrument of this world could play it, and the Parabolan originals are lost beyond even my ability to find. The Withered Celebrant steeples her fingers. But we yet have hope. my investigations uncovered a musical scholar of the university who gazes into a false, surface London using moonlight. He attempts to build what he sees there. His is a risky endeavour, but one useful for us. If he has created instruments from the world that wasn't, they may be able to cool down the Totentanz. Well, we can head to the scholar at the university. Students, academics, and those with the backing of a master can access the university. You are at least one of those. Very much an academic. You'll need to take a bribe, just in case your charms prove insufficiently, well, charming. You do not need to go here before seeking the other components of the Totentanz. When you do, you'll be occupied for a little while. We may as well go to the university first. Why not? The Withered Celebrant smiles. It seems you've already earned yourself entry. Once you are on the premises, ask the porters to direct you to the imprudent scholar. He is our potential instrument maker. The porter, minding the university's gate, gives you a hard look. Ah, she says, her expression lightening with recognition. Head on in then. Have a nice visit. That was easy. Let's find the professor's laboratory. You haven't heard of this professor before. You'll have to do some digging to find him. Few have heard of the professor you seek, but it soon becomes clear he's quite the imprudent scholar. Everyone who knows of him has something to say. He's a fraud. He's dead. He's secretly a robbery man. He scarred his mind with the correspondence and only speaks celestial truths. Unfortunately, they are far less informed on where you might find him, until you approach an elderly professor watching students play cricket. He had the most interesting ideas, but made all the wrong enemies, I'm afraid, the professor says, reaching underneath his mortarboard to scratch his head. They put him in the sub-basement of the tertiary annex, right between the two colleges. The Applied Metacoustics Laboratory is where you'll find him. What a wonderful name. Following the professor's directions, it is not long before you find the sub-basement that houses the Applied Metacoustics Laboratory. Well before you reach the lab, you hear it. Ominous ticking, the clear tone of a tuning fork that suggests the taste of butter. A furious viola arpeggio that sounds inexplicably but precisely like the year 1895. What a very specific year. When you knock on the door, the imprudent scholar answers, dropping a partially melted phonograph cylinder and a scorched pitch pipe into his pockets. A visitor, he says without pleasure. I should invite you in. Let's introduce ourselves. You'll need him to get your hands on suitable instruments. The imprudent scholar waves you into the laboratory, a poorly lit and cacophonous jumble of musical and scientific instruments. Birds chirp from a bell jar mounted on a barrel organ, which is pushed up against a wall of metronomes counting 100 competing meters, which are themselves nearly drowned out by the struck crystal ringing of a glass player piano. I don't get many people down here, the imprudent scholar says. Who sent you? Errant philosophies? Inscrutable bastards? Without waiting for an answer, he shoves a pile of papers off a carved stone clavichord and sits on it. Nevertheless, I will never punish an inquiring mind for, inquiring. You may plumb the depths and ascend the heights of my knowledge. The imprudent scholar is perched atop a stone clavichord, rubbing his fingers on its surface. Come on then, imbibe from the spring of my wisdom, he says. Let's ask him if he's made any instruments while observing false London. You have heard about his unusual research methods. Have they proved productive? So that's what you're after, eh? The result of my genius, my masterstroke. Naturally, an effort unappreciated in the academe. The imprudent scholar drums his fingers faster and faster as he speaks. The visions moonlight shows us are the ghost of a world. My theory is that it is the now dead possibility of an unfallen London. You can't bring anything back from the visions, of course. They have less substance than a dream. But with effort, you can remember what you see, including designs and schematics for things that don't exist. Or shouldn't. Anyway, he gestures at the many musical devices that crowd his laboratory. As he twists to look at them, the backs of his eyes glimmer with a trace of silver. I took so much from that place that I sometimes wonder what it takes back. He beams. So far, nothing of importance that I've noticed. Well, let's ask him if he knows anything about the Totentanz. He's a knowledgeable fellow with an interest in extraordinary music. It seems like it would be right up his street. The imprudent scholar scratches at his temple like he's trying to dig something out. Ah, that. A dead end in my research. Some third city composition. Maybe even older. I spent years just looking for the instruments they used. Parabolan make, supposedly. Exquisite, I'm sure, but there's no trace of them. He pauses, speaking while a clock strikes 12, with a sharp sound that makes all of the metal in the room shiver. If I couldn't find them, they're gone. Or so lost even a master couldn't acquire them, I bet. Let's explain our case and ask for the instruments. Surely he'd be delighted to assist, and after all, the Totentanz would be a way for London to finally witness his hard work. The impotent scholar vanishes into the back of the laboratory and emerges with an armful of heavy instrument cases and a wooden flute clutched in his fist. I suppose it's natural that London would need my expertise in the end, he says, depositing the cases at your feet. Though, before you leave, I think a demonstration is in order. He plays a single note on the flute, and the cacophony of the laboratory briefly harmonizes around it, resolving into a cold silver tone. It resonates behind your eyes and beneath your diaphragm, the sound of a dream vanishing upon waking. I eagerly await your results, he says, staring up at a wall of now synchronized metronomes. Sometimes I forget how long I've been doing this. You have the instruments. You could head to the Galbraith and Salazar auction house on Ladybones Road to get the sheet music. You could head to the Parlour of Virtue in Vale Garden to learn the steps of the Totentanz. Let's go to the Galbraith and Salazar auction house on Ladybones Road. So Ladybones Road, where is it? It is here. Here it is, entering Galbraith and Salazar's auction house. Red-gloved attendants swarm the marble steps of Galbraith and Salazar's auction house, dragging in crates, boxes, and snarling cages. The officious auctioneer cuts through the crowd to greet you, her assistants anxiously hovering behind her. Ah, yes, Mr. Wines' agent, she says, crossing your name out in a ledger. This way, please, and quickly. The other VIPs have arrived already, and we will begin soon. She's already marching up the steps of Galbraith and Salazar. Her assistants follow at a nervous canter. The galleries are wood-panelled, richly appointed, the smell of polish almost masking an older, more mineral scent. An assistant hands you an enormous, seemingly freshly cut carnation. You bid with it, says the auctioneer. Raise your flower when you wish to place a bid, and wait for me to acknowledge you. She references her ledger and leads you to make a sharp left. In the old days, the flowers were poisonous and you had to eat them if you lost. The officious auctioneer pauses in front of the brass banded door. Better times back then. In any case, we're starting. In you go. Blimey. The officious auctioneer stands behind a podium at the front of the room, in full command. It's a full house, but you can tell who the VIPs are. His amused lordship sits right in the front, a lone sunflower clutched in his fist. Verducci, lily at the ready, is in the corner, keeping an eye on the exit. Virginia, smelling her black bidding rose, sits alone in the back row. So we have three options here, all of which are catastrophic. We can bid atrociously, raise your carnation and name a repugnantly high sum. 0% chance of success. We can bid cautiously, lift your carnation and raise the current bid as little as possible. Or we can bide your time and wait a little while. You don't need to match everyone bid for bid. Let the others fight it out among themselves for a while and see what happens. We are going for the repugnantly high sum. Stirring the pot. The crowd stirs at your profligacy, but amidst the chattering amateurs, you catch sight of the major contenders responding to your play. Virginia taps her finger on the arm of her chair, thinking over your move. His amused lordship surveys the room slyly from the front row before making a bid, pleased as punch. Verducci is already placing his own bid, as fast as a fencer's riposte, twirling his lily in a figure 8 as he waits for the auctioneer to catch up. Okay, so now it's whether we have a chance again. We can either bid a repugnantly high sum, we can raise the bid as little as possible, or we can bide our time. I think we'll bide our time this time. See what happens. As soon as you lower your carnation and let the auction unfold on its own, it loses steam. Amidst the disinterested chatter and delusory bids of the crowd, his amused lordship looks disappointed at your tepid play. Meanwhile, Virginia smiles as if you've done exactly what she was hoping for. Raising his lily with a flourish, Verducci finally breaks the lull by placing an astronomical bid that breaks the crowd from its reverie. It's time to make another move. Oh my god, I'm just going all in. But no, let's try bidding cautiously. Because I want to see what all the text is. The other attendees place bids in quick succession in hopes that your low number is a sign you're nearly out of money. But Verducci seems less optimistic. He rolls his lily in his hands, looking for a feint. His amused lordship surveys the room slyly from the front row before making a bid, pleased as punch. In the back, Virginia smiles as if you've done exactly what she was hoping for. Okay, let's just go all in all the time now. Screw you guys. Yep, waiting for the auctioneer to catch up. We got a 60% chance of success now. Oh, let's try again. 75. A. Virginia considers your bid for a moment before crushing her black rose in her fist. The auction attendees murmur to each other at this display, but fall silent when she lets the bruised petals drift to the floor. Out of contention, Virginia smooths her gown and lets her gaze wander the hall, lingering for a brief and chilly moment on your face. You have disrupted Virginia's strategies in the auction for the Totentanz sheet music. She has given up. Okay, let's now bid cautiously. I'm guessing this will move Verducci out. There we go. Verducci leans back in his seat, a duelist confronted with an unexpected riposte. He lays his lily in the seat next to him and props his feet on the chair in front of him, unbothered by the hushed outrage of his occupant. And now we need to remove his amused lordship by biding my time. The auction quickly devolves into the crowd of dilettantes making penny ante bids. His amused lordship looks from you to Virginia to Verducci, his expression somewhere between pleading and boredom. After an extended series of single echo bids, he trades his bidding sunflower for a pocket knife and begins cleaning his nails. The officious auctioneer stands behind a podium at the front of the room in full command. It's a full house, but you can still tell who the VIPs are. His amused lordship sits right in the front, his sunflower tucked in his coat pocket, clearing his nails with a pocket knife. Verducci, lily discarded, has his feet propped up on a chair in front of him, ignoring the attendant pleading with him to stop. Virginia sits amidst crushed rose petals, her frosty smile keeping a bloom-bearing attendant at bay. Let's finish the auction. This auction has gone on for a while. It's time to name what you hope is the final price. You can see everyone taking stock after the auctioneer acknowledges your bid. Even his amused lordship takes notice, but does not jump back into contention. Going once, the audience goes silent at the auctioneer's call. We can either lean forward, the anticipation, the stakes. You can't be bothered to conceal your delight in such a delicious moment. Let's show them nothing. You're too close to winning this to start tipping your hand to the other bidders. Going twice, the lamps seem to burn hotter and brighter. The crowd draws in a breath as one. United in their anticipation, you can see a trickle of sweat run down the officious auctioneer's cheek. We can bite our lip. Magnificent, perfect, so much riding on a single moment. Or we can stare straight at the officious auctioneer. Nothing is sure in this city. Now is not the time for theatrics. Let's go with that. And sold! The officious auctioneer slams her hammer down. Everyone slumps in their chair, and the auctioneer blots her face with a handkerchief. Virginia is already sweeping out the door. Verducci is nowhere in sight, and his amused lordship has not moved a muscle, seemingly dead to the world. Make our way to the podium. It's time to collect the sheet music. The officious auctioneer retrieves your prize from beneath the podium, a blood-stained attaché case with an equally blood-stained knife embedded in its side. The sheet music of the Totentanz, she says, is now yours. Your initial attempt to examine your prize is interrupted by his amused lordship bursting back into life with a roar, pumping your hand up and down in congratulation on your win. I like the amused lordship, he's a wonderful fellow. After the auction goers file out, an attendant approaches you. I'll be happy to escort you to the door, he says casually, before leaning in to speak directly into your ear. Though perhaps you would be better off leaving your prize here. We can grab his shoulder and demand an explanation. You just acquired the sheet music at considerable expense, and now someone is telling you to dispose of it. Or we can give the attendant a chance to explain. It wasn't easy getting the sheet music, but he wouldn't be warning you without good reason. Let's go with an explanation. He glances at the officious auctioneer. We can't talk here. Meet me at the park across the street this evening. He bows before slipping out the hallway, hands clasped tightly behind his back. The red-gloved attendant who handed you the sheet music asked to meet you at the park on Ladybones Road to talk. As you make your way through the park, someone sidles up to you, cap pulled low over their eyes. They flash a smile, and you can see it's the attendant, looking far more relaxed than he did after the auction. Quite a bit of cloak and dagger, hey? He says. Old Galbraith and Salazar have us at the hall scared stiff, and that auctioneer doesn't miss much. He rolls his shoulders. We can speak freely here, I think. I'll tell you anything you want to know. Let's see why he suggested that we should get rid of the music. After all that trouble, too. We keep seeing the damned music. Every buyer ends up dead, vanished, or on an extended holiday at the Royal Bethlehem. and it comes back to us again. I can't say what the score does or what people do with it, but I know it's nothing good. Can I challenge him on his motivation? The auction hall was packed with London's most devious. This could all be one of their ploys. I get my bread bowing and scraping to the London's rich already. I'm not interested in doing their dirty work on my own time. The attendant stops short. Do what you please. I took the risk telling you because I wasn't sure you knew what you were getting into. I couldn't bear to see the auctioneer collecting commissions selling that cursed thing yet again. Clears his throat. Anyway, I've said my bit. Oh, well, we'll say our goodbyes. You've heard the attendant out. It's time to move on. I don't know what you're after, he says, walking off into the dark, but I hope you find it without getting into too much trouble. You could head to the Parlour of Virtue in Vale Garden to learn the steps of the Totentanz. So we'll be going to Vale Garden, but that will be in the next episode. Thank you all very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. And as always, I'll see you next time.